I'm an oil painter. I'm also Puerto Rican, and I'm half of Saviana Arts. The other half is Vivian LIPMAN-DENIS, and we've been working together, I think, since 2009, and we've created Saviana Arts about 4 years ago, and it's been a real good experience. I'm a New Yorican. I was born in a barrio, and my family moved to the South Bronx when I was a little girl. And all I know is the Bronx. I've always lived in the Bronx. And I'm very proud to be a New Yorican. I went to the High School of Art and Design, but I really discovered my artistic abilities when I was a little girl. In first grade, we had an art assignment where we had to paint something that took place in the summer. And when I did my painting, I was surprised that all of the kids suddenly came to my desk to look at what I had done. And I was completely surprised because I thought that I was just doing an assignment and didn't realize that I had this ability. So from the time that I was like 6 years old, I knew that there was something there. I remember that very vividly because I honestly didn't know that I had something until these kids started saying, "Look at Sarah's painting." So yeah, that was an aha moment. And from that point on, I knew that I had something that I should develop.
Hello, I'm Vivian LIPMAN-DENIS. I am a painter and I belong to an organization called PRIDA. I co-founded Saviana Arts with Sara Morales, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about myself. I am originally from Loisaida, and that's where I ended up. I've moved around a lot.
What is Loisaida?
The Lower East Side in Manhattan, New York City. I went to music and art, high school of music and art. I have always been very involved in the arts. I love to do sculpture, I love to paint, I love to draw. I also, as a child, took dancing classes, flamenco. I took ballet at Joffrey Ballet, flamenco at the Ballet Hispanica of New York. I was very active as a child. I'm an only child, and so my mom made sure that I had the best of all worlds. I even took piano lessons. I have a piano here.
What's really interesting about having a connection to daily life here in the diaspora is that is still a big connection for us. It is still the experience, our experience. And we have to remember too that diaspora culture is a really important part of our experience, an important part of our heritage.
I have a partner, an art partner. Her name is Sara Morales. We met about 10 years ago at a book club, of all places. And when we both found out that we had the love for art, for painting, we decided once a week to meet to paint. But we were getting stifled. There were moments where we just didn't feel motivated, or we didn't know what we wanted to paint. And we found this book called The Artist's Way, and they had exercises there that you needed to do as for artists. And one of the exercises they recommended was to have an art day every single, to have at least an art date once a month. So that's what we would do. We would go to the museum, we would go to the park, we would go to exhibitions. And then from there, we would get motivated. We would go, "Oh, I like that painting. I think I think I know what I want to do." And then I would take my camera out. I start taking photos, everywhere I go. And that's where my motivation comes from.
So by having artwork or paintings and images that reflect our daily lives and things that are going on here, it's also connecting us to our lived experience here as well, which is also our New Yorican culture, part of Puerto Rican culture, but also part of our New Yorican experience here as well.
Lately, my process has to do with what's important to me as a Puerto Rican. And it's because every time you hear the word Puerto Rican, you always hear things that have to do with economic issues, social issues, and never ever about the culture. So it is my intention to promote the culture through visual art. And one of the things that I do, even just walking down the street, I try to see the gifts of who we are as Puerto Ricans and as New Yorkers, and I try to portray those gifts in my artwork.
You know, taking designs or images, but they're actually taking sort of like snapshots and scenes from everyday life, whether it's musicians, whether it's people in different places in the city. And again, this is all part of the experience, the lived experience right now of the people who live here. You know, New Yorkers, how people want to define themselves as Puerto Ricans, as New Yorkers. So their work sort of reflects that. Again, and painting is not a traditional art form. It's not what we call a folk art, but they're taking elements of folk form. They're taking elements of folk culture, whether, you know, it's drummers or and things like that, and using them as their inspiration for the images that they create.
Of being Puerto Rican. I'm also Jewish on my father's side. I'm proud of being both. And so I want to show that to the world. I want to show what it was like for me to grow up as a child. I want to show people what it was like to have playing dominoes. And so it's really important that my paintings represent that.
My biggest inspirations would be my family. I come from a very, very large family. My mother had 14 kids. 14, yes. Wow. Alive, there are 9. And we have always kept the tradition of being together. We are always together for the holidays. And we always have our annual picnic. And we do all these Puerto Rican things like in early November, my sisters and I get together to make pasteles for the holidays. So it's a real
What's pasteles?
Pasteles is a dish that's made from root vegetables that you wrap up in banana leaves, and inside the pasteles you have whatever choice of meat that you want to put into it. And it's the whole process itself is a way for the family to get together and just enjoy each other's company. So it's not just making the pasteles but eating them. They're very delicious. But aside from that, it's those things that I try to portray in my paintings.
I love portraits. I love real life paintings. I do get inspired by abstract, but that's not my calling. Everybody has a calling, and while I appreciate everyone's different take on art, mine is doing realistic paintings. Realism. This is one of my favorite paintings that I've done. This is my Aunt Rosaura. This was done in, the photograph, the point of reference that I used was a photograph from her. I think this was done in the 50s or the 60s. And I wanted to paint a woman, a Puerto Rican woman that was proud and smart and pretty and educated and sassy, and to show that this is a true Puerto Rican. And I think I also wanted to do one where she would be really proud of knowing that I'd done her well. She was someone who was to be reckoned with. She was strong-minded. She raised 8 children, but she always was proud of the way she looked, the way she dressed, and I loved her.
Our experience here is quite different from the island, whether it's the West Side Story migrant experience and dealing with what it's like to grow up in an urban environment, whether it's going to Orchard Beach in the summer, whether it's being not Spanish dominant, and so you're learning poetry as New Rican poets do in Spanglish in a certain rhythm, in a cadence and rhythm comes from living next to African Americans and other Latinos and other groups. All that's part of that experience here. So the New Rican experience is very, very important to what we here in New York, and now in places like Florida and Chicago and other places, it's part of our culture as well.
Besides the pasteles, how do you think your personality is portrayed in your work?
Well, I try to represent both sides of me. I'm a New Yorker and I'm a Puerto Rican, and those are two very different cultures kind of melded into one. So now we become New Yorkers. So I try to celebrate both cultures. That's what I try to do in my paintings. What we're trying to represent is the contemporary New Yorican, how we live today, and what we try to show in each one of our paintings is just a glimpse or a moment in that life, in how we live. It's a source of education. It's a way to show Puerto Ricans and non-Puerto Ricans who we are. I just try every time to push myself a little further with what I'm trying to portray. And you could see the difference from my early work to now, that it has developed substantially. And it's only because I do things like, for instance, in this particular piece that I'm doing for a friend of mine, my challenge here was to make denim look like denim. And then there's this ground here that I have to kind of depict, and it's very difficult when you look at it, so I have to find a way of putting it together so I'm satisfied with it. So each time that I make a painting and I select a subject matter, there's something new in it for me to tackle, and every time that I do that, I feel I've improved. And my family always tells me, man, you're getting better. So I guess I am.
I think painters are also storytellers. What's so sad now is that everything is now becoming digital. Everything's quick and done, and and there's no memory of it being done. I must have over 30,000 digital pictures, photos, and honestly, I don't remember half of them, because they don't speak to me. So I feel like paintings are forever, and I want to share my life, and I want to share my I remember my mother telling me lots of stories when I was a little girl about living in Puerto Rico. So I want those stories to stay alive, and I want them to stay alive with my paintings.
What is your preferred medium?
For the moment, it's oil.
In regard to your more recent pieces, do you have a favorite? I know that's hard to ask an artist because, when it comes to artists, mostly all of their works are their favorites because they're like their children. But do you have one that pretty much stands out?
To me personally, no. They're all my favorites, only because I see that every time I do one, I'm doing something new that I hadn't done before. So I like to look back at my past work and look now at what I've done so I could see the transition. So for me, they're all good.
I love oils. I really, really love oil. I just started a painting today. I've actually been working on it for quite a while. I usually outline it. I have to think it through. I have to decide what size painting I want to do. And so today, it's been a couple of weeks since I painted, because I was doing a show, a craft show. And when I picked up that paintbrush and I started to paint, I just relax. It just makes me really happy. So I've tried other mediums. I've tried acrylic. Acrylic is it dries too quick, and I'm one that does a lot of redoing. I do a lot of layers on my painting. So oils dry very slowly, and they allow you to paint over it. I can fix it. I can fix mistakes if I make any. I want to make the sky of Puerto Rico because when I went to Puerto Rico, the sky was beautiful. I want to make a beautiful sky, so I think I'm going to work with light blue. Is the color I want to start with. If it doesn't work, I'll do it again and maybe make a darker color. So right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm basically using a big brush and I'm mixing the linseed oil and the paints together, and I'm just basically doing the background. And again, this is stage 1, where I'm super excited to start this, and probably in stage 2 I'm going to say, why did I start this project? And then all of a sudden I know I'm going to get to stage 3 where I'm going to say, wow, it's finally going to start looking like something. So I have to be very patient and know that I'm going to have all those three, it never fails, I'm going to pass through all those stages of painting. So this is a really big challenge. This one, I've never done such a big painting before. So I know it's way down here, so I'm probably going to push the painting up more to paint down below. For now, this is where I'm.
How do you overcome a creative block?
One way that I overcome the creative block is just to observe my people in action, to hear them speak about, you know, what they do in their spare time, their work at home, because every time somebody says something, an idea pops into my head. And I'm trying to portray all those aspects of our life so that people could see who we are. So I have a lot of things around me that give me ideas, that get me started. We took a trip to Puerto Rico in January. It was a 16-day trip that we visited 18 pueblos. All right. When I first start working on a piece of work, I start by drawing it. And then when I put paint to canvas, what I do is start with the furthest thing, which in this case would be the sky. And after I do the sky, then I start putting the greens and the browns of the forest, and then I put the basic color of the ground. The final step would be the figures, because those are the ones that are closest to you. So my canvas will always start with the furthest object, and then it works its way up to the main figures on the canvas.
I'm a perfectionist, so it takes me a really, really long time to finish a painting because I want the details to be just, the painting has to call to me. There has to be a feeling coming from it. I tend to be very romantic, so I think some of my paintings are very romantic. And also the colors. I love colors. When I first started painting that, it was this is my boyfriend's father, and this was done in the 70s. The photograph. I used a point of reference, an old photograph, and it was really fuzzy. And so this painting took me 2 years because each of these men became part of me. I didn't just want to just paint a face. I mean, I wanted to make sure that their likeness, I mean, each one became a friend. This is Flaco, you know, and I saw like I saw a past. I saw a story for him. This is Juan Manolin, and he was kind of like the head guy in the group. You know, he was the one that bossed everyone around. And then there's the Joker. You know, his name was Jose, and this is Pepe. Pepe likes to eat a lot. So I had to give a story to each character in order to paint them, and they became like my best friends for a long time. I was really involved in them. I mean, with their faces and so forth.
How do you overcome creative blocks?
To overcome creative blocks, what I do is I try to relax, because when you try to overthink things, all you do is frustrate yourself. So I either take a walk, hang out with my puppies, or meditate. And I find that meditating is very effective, because once you clear your mind, then you are more relaxed and you are able to rethink what the next step will be.
By taking a walk in my neighborhood. I live in the Lower East Side, and it's an old style neighborhood. Although it's becoming, they're building more new stuff around, I still like to go to the old haunts, and I sit. I think somebody once told me that artists look at the world differently, and I believe that, because every time I take a walk in my neighborhood, even though I've seen these places over and over again, every single time I do this, I see something new, and I get excited and I get motivated, and I come back and decide, you know, that's where I...
How do you determine when a work is finished?
That's very difficult for most artists, and sometimes I just have to walk away. It's never finished. It never really is, because even after you've determined that it's finished, you start looking at your work and saying, I should have done this, I should have done that. So that's really a hard one. When I put my signature, I'm satisfied. If I'm not satisfied with the work, the signature does not go on.
Oh my God. I have the hardest time determining when something's finished. I think we all do. You see that painting? That took me 4 years to complete. That one. Because of it, and it was also the biggest challenge I had. Of all my paintings, this was the biggest, because I've never done so many, so much
detail?
So much detail and so much in a painting. When I first started it, I was really excited, and then I started getting scared. I started thinking I wasn't going to be able to do this. This was too much for me. So I put it down. I put it away for a little bit, and then but because it was so big, it would stare at me every day. So eventually I picked it back up and I would start painting it, and again I was not pleased with it. So finally this year I set a deadline, and I said, no matter what, whether it was good or bad, I was going to finish it by a certain date, and I did. I finished it. I have something that I call the 4 stages of painting. Mm-hmm. The 4 stages of painting. The first stage is the one where you get excited and you decide, okay, this is the painting I want to do, and I start to visualize in my head how it's going to look on canvas, and I start drawing it, I start painting it, and then the second stage is the Freddy Krueger stage, where it doesn't look like anything that you planned on doing, like I plan on doing. It looks horrible. I start getting frustrated. I start saying I'm going to give up on this painting, and I don't want to do it anymore. And then I take a deep breath and say I'm going to keep doing it. And then there's the third stage, where it finally starts looking like something. It starts to look like my vision, and I say, okay, I can do this. And then the fourth stage is when it's almost finished, when I'm ready to say goodbye. It's hard to say goodbye to a painting and put that signature at the end, but you just know.
What was your best and worst experiences as an artist, or experience as an artist?
My best experience. Actually, for any artist, the best experience is positive feedback. for any artist. My worst experience, I have to give that thought. I'm not sure what that would be. Maybe not having money for materials. That might be the worst experience.
How do you deal when you're maybe at an event and you're selling your work and somebody says something like really negative or insulting about your work?
I had one gentleman, for some reason this incident always comes to mind because it was really the very first time that somebody said something. It wasn't really negative. He just said, I would have bought your pieces, but they have too much color. And I was taken aback by it. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, well, I'm never going to satisfy everybody. That's not the real world. You're never going to satisfy everybody. But I have to stick to my guns and stick to the fact that my pieces have a lot of color. They do have a lot of color. And it's because my people have a lot of color. We're colorful people. We have a colorful culture. Everything about us is color. So that's the way my paintings are going to be. What I most like is when I'm painting, I really zone out, and whatever problems or issues I might have in my life, they disappear when I'm painting. I wish that there were more hours in the day so that I can commit to, to my work.
What do you most like and most dislike about being an artist?
Wow, I don't really have much that I dislike. I dislike not having a big space to paint with. I dislike not having, that I can't afford to have a studio, a big enough studio. Because when I visit someone's studio and they have everything set up, that's my goal, is to have a big studio and to be able to paint freely. Because when I start working, I like to be able to leave my work there for as long as I'm working on it. And I paint in my living room, and what happens is I have to clean up after I work, and so then it takes me a long time to set up again, and sometimes that discourages me from painting. I'm trying hard not to let that happen, and right now I just set up a little corner studio where I don't plan to clean up. That's going to be my little corner until I get a studio.
What was your best and worst experience as an artist?
Okay, give me a second to think about that. Okay, I got it. Actually, it all happened in the same situation. Remember, I was telling you that I have 4 stages of painting, and this is where I got that theory. I was painting with Sara and Frank Pilot, Sara Morales and Frank Pilot. We were having a session, and they saw a picture of my mother, and I wanted to give her honor by painting her, and they said, paint this. This would be it's going to be a really good painting. It wasn't something I chose. It was actually something they chose for me. And I said to them I didn't want to do it because I've never painted. I've done a lot of painting over the year, a lot of paintings over the year, but I've never done portraits. I always feel that portraits are really, really hard to do, someone's face, and I only want to do one that does it justice. I don't want it to look cartoonish. And so when I started painting my mother, it was horrible. Like, I was excited to start the project. Then I went into the second stage where she started to really look like Freddy Krueger. And that's why I call it the Freddy Krueger stage. She didn't look like anything like my mother. And I was crying. I was upset. I was going to give up. And they said, no, Vivian, you can do this. And they gave me suggestions how to make it better, and they kept pushing me. They said, no, you're not starting anything new. You're going to finish this painting. And then finally, the light came. I started seeing my mother in the painting, and then I finished it, and I was so proud of that painting because it was my first portrait. And it's right over here. I'm going to show it to you. And this does look very much like my mom. And this is it. It's a small painting. So it's called Lucy. because her name is Lucy. We were in Las Marias, Puerto Rico, when we took this photo of her. She passed away shortly after that, so that's why this one means a lot to me. So I really, really wanted to do justice to her, especially with those glasses. She loved wearing, you know, she had those glasses, so really proud of this. This was done in 2010.
Right now, I'm working on a piece that was requested of me. It's derivative painting, as you can see. Derivative painting is painting from a photograph. And I'm starting to dabble in watercolor for the first time. Not my first time in my whole life, because I used to do watercolor in high school, but that was many, many moons ago. And I can show you a piece that my first piece that I did in watercolor. And I'm pretty satisfied with it because I have a heavy hand.
Keep on talking.
I have a heavy hand. So it's challenging me to use another medium, a medium that's completely different from oils. So that's what I'm working on now. My last project before this was a series of cafeteras. And I did that as homage to my mom. My mother used to make coffee 24/7. Every time you would walk to my house, inside my house, my mother would offer you a cup of coffee. And she has had every cafetera imaginable. So I painted 4 cafeteras, and right now it's probably my favorite pieces right now.
So a cafetera for our non-Spanish speaking viewers is
A coffee pot.
A coffee pot.
A big thing for Puerto Ricans is coffee.
Sara and I are actually doing a very interesting project. We're trying to do a painting together. I know very few artists have ever done that, where they've actually shared where they've actually shared an artwork together. So we wanted to do this together, and we have. So far what we have been doing is I would paint part of it, and then I would give it to her, and she would paint it in her studio in the Bronx, and then come back. But now we've finally gotten to the stage where we're planning to do it together. We're once a week we're going to meet at my house, and we're going to work on this piece, and we'll let you know how it goes. So it is a challenge because we both think very differently when we paint, and so I want it one way, she wants it another way, but we do compromise. We're very, very good at compromising.
Do you have a dream project?
A self-portrait. I have never done a self-portrait, and to me that would be a challenge. And I often think about what would be the subjects in the self-portrait, but to this day I haven't gotten started on it.
You've never done a self-portrait?
I've never done a self-portrait.
What? What is your dream project?
Okay. My dream project is to exhibit my works in Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico so much. I am so proud of what I do, to show life in Puerto Rico and also life as a New Yorican. And I have a lot of family there who don't get the opportunity to see my work, and it would make me proud for them to see it.
What would you like to accomplish with your work?
I want people to see who we are, because every time somebody mentions the words Puerto Rican, the first thing that comes to mind is economic issues, social issues. They never really think about the culture. And I want that to be in the forefront. Just as when you talk about Italians, the first thing that comes to your mind is Italian work. I want that to be what people think about when you say Puerto Rican, who we are as a culture, the beautiful culture that we have, the music, the food, the religion, the art, all of it.
I'd like to be able to do more paintings. I'd like to be able to develop our company. Work harder on making it more successful, Saviana Arts. I'd like to paint with children. I would like to paint with young adults and encourage them and help them become, help them in their dreams. So one of the things that we plan to do is we plan to join up with Yuga Arts, which is a company that encourages young people to become artists in their rights, whether it's graphics or doing murals. So I'd like to do that.
I joined PRIDA because I ran into people that were very giving, people that have been in the business for many years and are willing to share their expertise and to show you the way on how to do things, how to sell artwork, how to get permits. And they've been so helpful that that I really had to become a part of this. And I'm hoping that I'm putting it forward too for the new people that are coming in.
And Sara and I co-founded Saviana Arts. We decided to display our works at one of the art shows, the biggest one that we do during the year, which is at Hostos. It's called the Artisan Fair in November, third week, the week before Thanksgiving. We were next to Vinny Dark. He was an artist at PRIDA, and he said to us, "Why don't you join PRIDA?" It never occurred to us to join PRIDA until he said it. He said to us, you know, it would be good, you belong part with other artists, we'll encourage each other. If you need any help, there's always someone at PRIDA to help you out, and also help you pick venues to sell your art or show it. So I'm very proud to be a PRIDA member.
What advice would you give to an aspiring artist?
To believe in himself, to believe in his work, to believe that that he could make it, that it's not, and also that it's not about money. It's about enjoying yourself. It's about being a part of the work and really having fun with it. Have fun with it first, and then everything else will come later.
Go to school and paint every day. Paint every day. And not to get discouraged if things don't work out at first. Because I'm telling you, even with our own experience, sometimes we are always rethinking. We rethink the way we sell things, the way we present things. And every day, I think every year we keep growing as artists, and we also we grow as marketers. What helped me to grow as an artist is joining with Sara and Frank every week painting. So if you find that you're having a hard time in your artwork, look for different ways to look for different things. That maybe you be painting with someone else, maybe going out to the museum once a week, maybe going on YouTube and learning a new way of painting. Just don't be afraid to grow.
Anything else that you'd like to add that I didn't ask that you'd like to share?
Yeah, going back to the issue of color, I don't know if you've noticed that Vivian and I use peaches, browns, beiges as our colors, and there's a reason for that. We are celebrating the colors of our people when we do that. Right now I'm wearing a light peach, light pink t-shirt, and our people come in very, very, very pale colors. I'm going to get up for a minute to show you a t-shirt, and we also come in very, very, very dark colors and everything in between. So that's what we're celebrating. And you'll see that as we get more money, we will make t-shirts out of darker pinks and peaches and cinnamons and colors, all the colors that we're made of. Because when you say, what does a Puerto Rican look like? That's very hard to determine because we come from many different cultures. And as it's been said, we're the beautiful people because we do represent all of the races.
Vivian, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
inviting me into your creative space.
Thank you. And also never be afraid to be goofy.
Thank you so much for inviting me into your creative space and sharing your creative process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The way I work out my painting is that I first draw it. I draw it with pencil, and then when I put paint on canvas, I start with the furthest thing. So the furthest thing on this canvas would be the sky. So I put the sky, and then I put the background of the forest, and then I put the background of the ground. The last thing that I'm going to work on in the painting is the two figures because they are the ones that are closest to you visually. So when you first see the canvas, all you're going to see is blues, greens, and yellows. And then it starts to develop as at each stage. Then you start seeing a little bit of darker greens and browns, and then you see the texture of the ground. And that gets done first before I start working on the figures.
Cool. Can you repeat that?
Okay, let's try that again. Okay.
Okay, here we go. What is your dream project?
To exhibit and show my work in Puerto Rico. I recently went to
I'm
Puerto
reminding you. Look at Verizon.
Alexa, stop. Okay, sorry, say it again.
Okay, so what is your dream?
That's right. That would be cute in there, you know? That would actually
I wound up recording it, but, but
that might actually
it's one of those
cute.
outtakes, funny outtakes at the end.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
all right, here we
All
go.
right,
1,
let's
2,
try
3.
it. Okay.
All right, let's get it together.